Our planet is just buzzing with life, right? I mean, from the tiniest little bacteria all the way up to blue whales. But when you hear there are something like 8.7 million species out there, you've got to wonder, how in the world do we even begin to make sense of all that?
Yeah, seriously, how do you even start to organize that much variety? And think about this, how can a scientist in Japan know for sure they're talking about the exact same animal as a scientist in Brazil? Well, the answer is this amazing system, really one of the foundations of biology. It's all about creating some order from all that beautiful chaos. So let's dive in and see how it works. Okay, first up, biology's big filing cabinet. The best way to think about this whole thing is to picture a huge, perfectly organized filing cabinet. But instead of files, it holds every single living thing we've ever found. This, let's call it a biological library. It lets us do more than just sort and label things. It helps us understand how everything is connected.
So the official name for this science is taxonomy. It's really just the branch of biology that's all about classifying organisms. Basically, it's about putting them into groups based on what they have in common. How they're built, what they do, maybe even how they act. It's the method we use to navigate the incredible diversity of life.
All right, so we're moving on to the 7 levels of life. So how does this filing cabinet actually work? Well, it's not just one giant drawer. It's actually a system with 7 different levels, or what scientists call taxa, and they get more and more specific as you go down. So here they are, all 7 of them, from the biggest group to the smallest. We start at the top with kingdom. That's the most general, all-encompassing group. Then we get more and more specific all the way down to species, which is usually just one single type of organism. I love this analogy. Think of it like a full mailing address. The kingdom is the country, the phylum is the state, and you keep narrowing it down until the species is your exact house number. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. That's a lot to memorize. But don't worry, biologists have had a great little trick for this for ages. All you have to remember is this silly sentence. Kings play cards on fat green stools. See? The first letter of each word lines up perfectly with the first letter of each level. Kingdom, phylum, class, and so on. It's a classic for a reason. It totally works.
All right, now we're going to introduce the 5 kingdoms. Let's start right at the top of that pyramid. Modern biology pretty much sorts every living thing into 5 gigantic groups. We call them, you guessed it, the 5 kingdoms. And here they are. You've got Monera, which is basically bacteria. Then there's Proctista, that's a real mixed bag of things like amoeba. You've got fungi, like mushrooms. And of course, the 2 you're most familiar with, Plantae, all the plants, and Animalia, all the animals. Pretty much everything alive fits into one of these 5 buckets.
Okay, let's take a closer look. Put these kingdoms under the microscope, so to speak. We're going to see what really makes them different from one another. And honestly, the distinctions are super clear once you know what you're looking for.
So let's just take the 2 we know best, plants versus animals. On the plant side, they have these rigid cell walls, and they've got chlorophyll, which lets them make their own food. They're producers. Animals, though, totally different. We don't have cell walls, we don't have chlorophyll, so we have to go out and eat food to get energy. We're consumers. Even how they move is different, right? A plant moves by growing taller or sending out roots, while an animal, well, we can move our whole body from one place to another. It's these really fundamental differences that separate the kingdoms. Okay, this chart is awesome because it shows the whole system in action. Let's look at a human and a honeybee. Notice how they both start in the kingdom Animalia, but right at the next step, phylum, they split. We are chordates, we have a backbone. A honeybee is an arthropod, it has an exoskeleton. And then you've got maize, or corn, which is over in a completely different kingdom, Plantae. You can see how, as you go down each row, the groups get smaller and more specific until, bam, you land on one unique species. Let's make this even more concrete. Take a look at this fish. Right away, we know it's in kingdom Animalia. And since it has a backbone, that puts it in the phylum Chordata. And within that group, it belongs to the class Pisces. See how each level just narrows it down a little more? It helps us pinpoint exactly what this creature is and how it's related to everything else. Next up, what's in a name? Okay, so we figured out how to sort everything, but what do we actually call it? I mean, what we call a fish in English is a pez in Spanish and a sakana in Japanese. You can see how that would get super confusing, right? So science really needed one universal system for naming things. And we got one. It's called binomial nomenclature. It sounds fancy, but if you break it down, bi just means 2, and nomen means name. So it's a 2-name system.
This whole idea came from a really smart Swedish scientist named Carl Linnaeus. And, thanks to him, a scientist anywhere in the world can use one single name and everyone knows exactly which species they're talking about. No more confusion.
And the rules for this naming system are actually pretty simple, but they are super important. Every scientific name has two parts. The first part is the genus, and the second is the species. You always capitalize the genus name, but the species name is always lowercase. And the whole thing should be written in italics, or if you're handwriting it, you can just underline it. It's kind of like a first and last name for every single organism.
And of course, you know the most famous example of all, Homo sapiens. Yep, that's us, humans. Homo is our genus, and sapiens is our species. That is our official, unique scientific name that's recognized absolutely everywhere.
Okay, so now let's talk about why all of this matters. After everything we've talked about, why do scientists go to all this trouble? Why is this detailed system so important in the real world?
Well, for starters, this system takes the completely impossible job of studying millions of species and makes it, well, manageable. When a scientist finds a new organism, they already have a roadmap to figure out where it fits into the giant tree of life. But probably the most important thing is that it creates a universal language. It lets scientists communicate clearly and precisely, no matter what country they're in or what language they speak.
All right, I want to leave you with a little bit of a puzzle. We've got these 5 kingdoms for pretty much all of life, but what about viruses? They don't really fit. They can't reproduce by themselves, and they don't have the same kind of cells as other living things, so they don't belong in any of the kingdoms. So that leads to a really deep question. If something doesn't fit into our system for defining life, is it actually alive? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.